Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Sister Sister, a podcast for spiritual baddies. We're your hosts, Eleanor Maya, and welcome back to season 6. Oh, tell us about today's episode.
So today's episode is going to be all about warding, different types of wards, the origins of wards, what exactly they are, different tools that you can use for them. And we do have a disclaimer for you. Many of these practices have been pulled from my personal practice, along with other resources that we mention and some books that we're going to recommend. Because this is a compilation of information, we're not going to directly cite every single thing in the episode, just like the things that are most important to cite. But a lot of this does come from my personal practice, and I can't exactly remember where everything came from. So the books that I have are in the recommendations, and that's where I'm gonna say most of it's probably from. And then I did pull some stuff offline as well from different forums. So, Amaya, do you want to start with what is a ward?
Yes, so a ward is either an energetic or physical way of creating a boundary around something. Wards are one of the four types of protection magic that most people start with. Think of it as a barrier that prevents negative energies, entities, or ill will from reaching a space, person, or object. However, the further you go along in your witchcraft journey, the more complex they can get. In this episode, we're going to explore everything from beginner protection wards for your home to transmutation wards and baneful returns to sender. No matter what practice you follow, there is likely to be some sort of form of warding. This can be as simple as wearing a bracelet or necklace from the evil eye or hanging a broom above your entryway, which I have both. Many cultures may see these physical items being used as a ward more so as a superstition, but they typically come from word of mouth traditions that are passed down through generations. A brief history of wards from the Irish pagan school that sums up the gist of centuries of historical context. The history of magical wards and protective spells is a long one, stretching back to ancient civilizations. These spells, rituals, and magical items were used to form a protective barrier around a home or living space, as well as guard an individual from physical and emotional harm, such as might be caused by ghosts, spirits, or the Sid fairies, or the ill intent or active cursing of an enemy. Over time, different cultures developed their own methods for creating wards based on their personal beliefs and traditions. Today, many people still use these powerful spells to guard against negative energies and entities in order to keep them safe from harm.
So, before you perform a ward, the most important thing, and this really should go without saying if you've been listening to our podcast for any amount of time, you want to make sure that you are cleansing. Especially if it's in your home, you definitely need to be doing some form of cleansing, whether it's sound cleansing, smoke cleansing, you're using a selenite wand, moon water, whatever it may be. You want to do some form of cleansing because you don't want the negative energy that is currently there lingering if, you're fighting against something with this ward. You also just should have wards in your home, regardless. The amount of wards I have on my shop is insane. Um, it's just a good thing to do to keep your sacred space, and no one else's energy getting everything all icky. So, chances are, if you've been looking into any form of protection magic, you've probably seen a lot of ways to put up a ward in your home to protect your space and the energy in your home. We're going to go through the most beginner-friendly types of wards and kind of the common items that would be used in them. Just for anyone who is starting from the very beginning, they've never heard of what a ward is, which we did do an episode on protection magic, so we did brush on it there, but we wanted to do a more in-depth version of this. So, just kind of going through some of the common items. The first one is black tourmaline and clear quartz in all four corners of your home or a room to create a protective shield. I know we've talked about this before on the podcast because I have this in my store, and I know Amaya does something similar as well. But you can also put selenite above your door frames with a protection crystal to cleanse anyone that is coming into your space. You can keep the protection crystals throughout your home, just kind of overall keeping some sort of protective barrier as people enter and exit your home. The second is black salt in your windowsills and on your door frame. This is to keep an extra layer of protection from any sort of forced intruders, whether that be spiritual or physical. And it also is a good way to create a barrier on the outside of your home. And the next would be a witch's broom above or beside your door to protect your point of entry into your home. Different cultures have different reasons that they do this, and I still need to hang my broom above the door in the shop. It's been 2 years that I've had it, and it still is not up there. But depending on what cultural background you have, it tends to be another way to keep your space protected from any sort of negative energies entering. Another thing that you can use on your door is witch's bells on your doorknob, which not only keeps a protective ward there, but it's going to sound cleanse every single time the door is open. Witches' balls in your windows for a protective ward. That's another thing that you tend to usually only see them talked about during like Yule time because of their resemblance to Christmas ornaments, but witches' balls can be used all year round. And they are a type of spell that is made in a glass ball, and typically, they're hung in a window to be put up as a ward. The most common type are protective, but you also can do them for other types of spells, whether it's like positivity in your home, loving energy in your home, etc.
So next is the modern version of the stuck heart spell that is hung by an entryway to ward. This spell is something that you create a heart, historically an animal heart, and most people use clay now, place pins in it, and place it in a frame above or beside your door frame to protect the entryway of your home, like
Here's an
how
example
Elle
of
was
this.
holding.
Yeah, this is mine
That
that I
was
have in the
really cute.
Thanks. I learned how to do this from a Celtic witchcraft book that's like Celtic witch spacecrafts. So,
Nice. Cute. Pentacles can be used pretty much anywhere throughout your home to create protective wards. These can be visual or drawn on with the moon water to walls, windows, or literally anywhere. You can put one at the foot of your doormats to keep the outside of the entryway protected as well. Gargoyles or other protective figures outside your home or at your entry points. Um, this is common. We can talk more about it later on, but these are usually protective figures. A lot of people, especially Hispanics, outside of their home, they'll have a statue of, I believe I'm pretty sure it's the Virgin Mary. And a lot of the times, obviously, the Virgin Mary is this motherly figure, kind of, so to speak, but she also has features or other capabilities that people believe in to protect their home and, keep it safe and loving, like Elle has said. And last but not least, water bowl wards. And Elle will explain this more in depth.
yeah, so a lot of people that I know, and specifically a lot of people who practice close practices, will use a variation on a water bowl ward with like homemade spell waters and things like that. But you can do this even without like infringing on a closed practice. But it's basically a bowl that you have water in, and you're going to put herbs in it that are meant to be protective. And you kind of keep an eye on it. If the water dries up, then it's time to refresh it. If the herbs start to get moldy, it's time to refresh it. It's one of those things that kind of like you keep an eye on it to see what like negative energy is hitting you. It's like an active ward that you can visually see the energy as it's hitting it. Some people even put like gargoyles or like different statues of whether it be a deity, some sort of spirit, or some sort of like protective figure within the water bowl ward. Some people will put different protective crystals in it. It's really up to the practitioner for that, but it's usually kept like somewhere that would be up high that like people aren't going to see it. It's just going to look like a bowl sitting on top of like a bookshelf or something, but it's going to literally suck up all of the negative energy. And the reason I put gargoyles on here, which I don't think a lot of people realize, that the reason that gargoyles were included in a lot of medieval architecture was they're known to be protective figures, which a lot of people are like, ooh, creepy gargoyles. But no, they were put there for protection because people were superstitious of the witches of the villages placing a hex on them. So that is why gargoyles are in so much Gothic architecture. The more you know.
The more you know. Now we're going to talk about common warding tools to protect you. As I mentioned before, one of them being evil eye jewelry, which is something I love to wear, mainly because it's pretty, but also like it's one of the main ways that it protects you, and you can get them as earrings, necklaces, bracelets, anklets. They make all kinds.
I
I
need
wear,
evil eye
yeah,
something.
something. Honestly, it's one of the best forms of protection, and the moment it breaks, you know that someone sent their evil eye, negative, jealous energy towards you. So that's the one thing I would say. If you do tend to get attached to your jewelry like I do, remember that it was meant to break for a reason. The next one is protective crystal jewelry. This is another big one. For specifically negative energy, I'd recommend any of the black looking crystals or stones: hematite, black tourmaline, obsidian, jet, even, which I just learned about recently. I got my cousin a jet bracelet, but that one was for protection.
Jet
And
can break very easily, though. That's the only
yeah,
thing I would say. So
yeah,
if you're someone who like works a lot with your hands, I wouldn't suggest a bracelet or a ring, maybe a necklace. I mean, obsidian can also break pretty easily. I wear an obsidian necklace every single day that was gifted to me from a Ren Fair friend, actually. But yeah, black onyx is another good one for
onyx, yes.
protection. There are some other stones as well that have protective properties if you're looking for something that's going to be protective and also grounding. Amethyst is a really good one. But I think the most important thing is what your intent is for the protection. If you're wanting it to absorb negative energy, hematite, absolutely. It
Right.
will break once it's absorbed it, so don't get attached to that either. If you're wanting more of a shield, you want to go for a black tourmaline or an obsidian, and if you want something that's going to neutralize it, onyx is really good for kind of like just neutralizing it and dissipating it out.
Yes. This next one, speaking of the color black, wearing it or putting on black makeup, a lot of people have this superstition that wearing black will cause bad things to happen, but actually, it is the opposite. It'll protect you from any, I wouldn't say it will like save your life, but it'll definitely push that negative energy off of you, so to speak. So
And then the last one
I'm
that we have on here is wearing a veil. Which, if you aren't familiar with a veil, it isn't like in the sense of like wedding veil. It is any sort of protective head covering, whether it's a bandana, a hat, it can literally be anything that covers the top of your head. Because the most common place for you to get hit with negative energy is going to be the top of your head. It's going to hit up here and then go throughout your body because of the top of your head being the place that exudes the most energy off of you. That's just like very basic kind of spiritual practices. A lot of people say it's because it's the crown chakra. Don't whitewash chakras. Buy a book from someone who is from India or is Indian American that wrote it. That's all I have to say about that TED Talk. But any form of head covering that you're going to wear is going to help with warding negative energy away from you because it can't enter through the top of your head. Next, we're going to talk about locking mirrors and entry points for spirits. And this is something that I do, and my mom is not allowed to clean mirrors in our house unless I'm able to then relock them. And we're not talking like locking with a key, we're talking about spiritual locking. So let's talk about that a little bit. So, one of the easiest ways to start warding your home from negative entities that may linger is to lock your mirrors and closets, which are the most common entry points for spirits. This isn't a physical lock, but a spiritual one. You can do this by lighting a stick of incense or herb bundle and drawing a pentacle in front of the potential portal multiple times. I usually say at least three. You can also choose to create a sigil or use a rune if that fits your practice better. Just be sure that you set your intention, that the space is protected from any unwanted guests entering through these points. If you can't use the smoke method, you can also use other items like a protective crystal wand, moon water, black salt, any sort of protective herb mixture that you could, use and trace it onto the mirror slash entry point. Another way to create a ward around your home is going to be creating a protection spell jar and keeping it on your altar that is going to kind of act as like a, I don't want to say like a grounding point, but you ask any sort of spirits that you work with, whether it's your ancestors, any sort of deities, anything like that, to help protect your home. And something I didn't put in here, but ask your house spirits to protect your home as well, because they are part of your home. You need to make nice with the house spirits. So just ask them to help protect your home as well while you're at it. But the protection spell jar on your altar will work kind of as a central location for a ward on top of the other things that you're doing, like locking your mirrors, keeping black salt on your windowsills, crystals in the corners, all of that.
Let's talk about reflective wards. So these wards use objects such as mirrors, bodies of water, reflective stones, or surfaces to help you repel the energy back to the sender. There's a lot of ways you can do this to your advantage depending on what you're trying to accomplish. But this ward works extremely well to protect your vehicle from aggressive drivers. You can use your rear view mirror, side mirror, and even the paint on your car surface to help reflect the negative energy away. You can also do this by using moon water to draw protective sigils on the mirrors in your car, add some protective spirit crystals into your vehicle, or even a sachet of herb that's used for protection. This type of ward can be done for any place that you have a reflective surface. Just be sure to set your intention beforehand. Now we could talk about scattering wards. So if you want to keep the negative energy from hitting the established wards in your spaces, especially your home, a scattering ward outside your home could be extremely beneficial. To perform a scattering ward, you will need an herb mixture that is for protection and dissolving of negative energies. You want to start from the north side of your home, then move east to south to west and back to the north point. It is best to perform this kind of ward on a windy day, as the wind will help with the intention to scatter negative energy away as you spread the herb mixture into the wind. The following are some herb recommendations for scattering wards from a mix of our sources that are available for this episode that will be included in the description of YouTube and if you're listening in the podcast version. Lavender, which is to soften and disperse negative energy into calm. Chamomile, which breaks up anxiety or hostility, scattering it gently. Dandelion, to carry away attachments and harmful forces on the wind. Juniper berries, to spin stagnant or hostile energy out of your space. And garden sage, to purify negative energies as they enter a gathering space.
Now we're going to talk about transmutation wards, which are a little bit more advanced, but they're my favorite kind of ward. So transmutation wards are specifically used to manipulate energy. One example of this is turning someone's ill will into a money spell for you. Anytime someone speaks negatively on you, that's an extra couple bucks in your pocket. That's my favorite kind of transmutation ward. So this can be done with any transformative spell to take a negative intention from someone else and turn it into positive intentions for you. This type of ward tends to be more involved since you're essentially performing two spells wrapped up into one. Some of the more common ways to use this is going to be turning the negative energy into prosperity, joy, clarity, loving energy, or calming energy for you. So to perform a transmutation ward, the easiest way is by using candle magic. I personally have found if you can't do candle magic, there are other ways to do it. We have sources linked that will tell you how to do it other ways, but I'm going to explain candle magic for the purposes of this episode. So you're going to set up your warding spell on one side of a fire safe dish, and then what you're going to be transmuting that negative energy that's hitting your ward into as a spell on the other side. So let's just take an example of turning negative energy into money for you. So you would set up a green candle with herbs that are related to prosperity, abundance, that kind of thing, cinnamon, orange, rosemary, cloves, what have you. Then in order to kind of like transmute that, you're going to draw an arrow between the two spells with salt. You can also use specifically like a spell salt. So if you're wanting to do money, you could do green salt. If you're wanting to do loving energy, you could use red salt. And then basically the way that you set up the spell is completely up to you with what herbs you choose. If you decide you want to use crystals, I tend to charge any sort of bracelets that I use for this type of ward, like my tiger's eye for a money one, whenever I do this with this energy, so that it stays stuck to me. Um, but you're pretty much just going to set it up how you would any two specific spells, and then you're going to use the arrow of some kind of salt to kind of help the energy know which way it's supposed to flow. And then you're going to want to have some sort of incantation that you can state while you are lighting the candles of the spell. The one thing I will say with this type of ward is you gotta make sure your intentions are very clear and that you know exactly what you are wanting to happen. Because if you are distracted even a little bit, that negative energy is not going to know that it needs to turn into money for you or joy for you or whatever. You have to really make sure you are able to be focused for this type of ward. That's why it is more advanced. And then the last kind of ward that we're going to talk about is a baneful ward, which I am also very fond of. As we've said time and time again, baneful magic does have a time and a place when it comes to creating spells. Some consider a return to sender a form of baneful magic, while I personally believe that, and I don't think Amaya really does either. That's kind of what we mean by baneful ward. It's going to send that back to the person who sent it to you, which, that's kind of just like F around, find out at that point. That's what we mean by baneful ward. But this type of ward is going to start just like any other. The goal is to protect you, your space, or any extension of you and your space. But you're going to add a little bit of extra intention to send that negative energy that was thrown to you right back to the sender, kind of like a boomerang effect. So some of the common spell ingredients that you can use for return to sender wards are going to include your normal protective herbs and crystals, but then some additional things would be red pepper flakes to return the negative energy with a little bit of extra heat to the person. Same goes for things like cayenne pepper that's dried, or really any sort of dried spicy herbal material to return that negative energy with some spice. You can add in sharp objects like rusty nails, tacks, pins. This is going to deflect the negative energy off of you with sharp precision back to the person. Baneful herbs that you can use include wolfsbane, mandrake, foxglove, hemlock. I would not recommend using belladonna in a ward personally, but if that's your cup of tea, go ahead. And then you can also use red or black string to bind the negative energy to the sender. That's more so where like the actual baneful part comes in because it's like you're not just gonna let it like boomerang back to them and hit them once. No, they're gonna be stuck in that energy for a little bit if you choose to use the binding portion of it. And if you're using a candle spell, you bind two candles together. If you're using a jar spell, you're going to bind the outside of the jar in that instance. So, some further reading and book recommendations. I have two by Rust of Nail and Prick of Thorns by Althea Sebastiani, and then Protection and Reversal Magic by Jason Miller. So, all in all, wording is very important.
Yes. Obviously, don't do it just because you're bored and have nothing better to do with your life. You want to do it with intention. If someone's truly harming you or bothering you, or you're just like they're doing too much and you're not liking the vibes, these are some ways that you can just kind of chill them out a bit, honestly. Sometimes you just need to chill people out a bit and just, you don't need them to like kick rocks, but just like go away.
We have
But
a whole
yeah,
episode on Baneful Magic. If you guys want to know the differences between like hexes, curses, jinxes, all of that, you
yeah, yeah. That
go
was like
listen to
season
that.
4, right?
I think so.
Yeah. So go
But
look at that. We talk about that more in depth, but these are more so for like protection and getting
yeah.
people to off, f off. Yeah,
If they F around, they find out. That's just kind of how it goes. You mess with a witch, you're probably not gonna like the repercussions. And if you work with your spirit team well enough, they're gonna go to bat for you and you don't even gotta worry about it. But
right.
that's
That's a whole other TED talk that we need
yeah.
to get into. Anyway, do this carefully. If you do it, make sure you take the right precautions, and make sure you protect yourself beforehand, and just don't resort to this at the first like sign of annoyance or whatever. That
No, you
being
should have
said,
your regular wards up.
yeah,
It's the negative energy is not going to affect you. It's just like if someone is repeatedly trying to on purpose, then like return to sender baneful ward.
yeah, exactly. And your evil eye and all that, whatever jewelry, clothing, whatever that you wear will also help with this. So yes, firm believer in that you need protected jewelry. So let's get right into astrology almanac.
Today, the moon in Capricorn will trine with Venus in Taurus. This energy is all about helping one another. You may receive help or give help to someone close to you, which helps uplift both parties and improves your connection to one another. On the 15th, we have some challenging energy with Mars and Leo squaring Uranus and Taurus. This energy can lead to impatience and quick bursts of irritability. To avoid this, try to keep yourself busy. We have Jupiter in Cancer also squaring with Saturn in Aries this day, which can make you feel like opportunities are falling through your fingertips and disappearing. Instead of focusing on the negative, try to find balance between big ideas and discipline in your work. On the 17th, Mars will enter Virgo. Mars is all about drive, and practical Virgo is ready to stay organized and hard at work. Use this energy to your advantage to make big progress on work projects. Finally, on the 18th, we have a last quarter moon in Pisces. This can help you to free up your mind and aid in you feeling more spiritually aligned.
Tea, straight
Yeah,
tea.
normally I wouldn't include the smaller transits like squares, but those two together just was like, yeah, no, we're gonna put that in there. Like, that's gonna be a rough day for a lot of people.
So yeah, it's not a Mercury retrograde, but it's a square. So, and if you don't know about what any of these words mean, we also did an episode on this either in season 3 or season 4. I know it was one of those. You can look it back. look back and, learn about that. But anyway, let's get right into tarot time.
All right, let's find out what the collective needs to know today. Oh, why do they always gotta fall on the floor? Okay, oh, we have the Empress. Very loving energy, very divine feminine. Uh, the Empress is a motherly energy in the traditional depiction of the Empress, which I would try to show you, but it's too close to the color of our background. The Empress is petting a lion. She has tamed the lion. It is very nurturing, gentle-minded. So this is very much so about being in your divine feminine energy, very much so about being the nurturing, caring, and compassionate person that people need you to be, like we talked about in the beginning of the astrology almanac, choosing to help someone out because they need it, not because you have to, and really just kind of focusing on having some deeper connections, feeling very spiritually aligned, that kind of thing with this energy. So, yeah, I think it very much so goes along with the astrology almanac, but are we surprised?
Like, when does it not? Like, realistically speaking, it never doesn't match. That being said, keep that in mind. Times will be a little challenging, but you got this. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Sister Sister, our podcast for spiritual baddies. Tune in next week if you haven't already, which I don't even think I should go through this whole spiel. But if you're new here, you should probably hear it once at least. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram and TikTok, and get post notifications every time an episode drops by clicking that bell button. But yeah, make sure you do all that if you're new here. So yeah, tune in. See you guys next time.
Bye.